Good to go.
All right. All right, so thank you guys so much for being here today. My name is Catherine Parker. I'm the Violence Prevention Specialist at Laws, Domestic Violence, and Sexual Assault Services. And so we're here to talk with you guys today about how to have these types of conversations regarding healthy relationships and body safety with your teens and tweens. So when it comes to the knowledge and skills that teens and tweens need in regards to having those healthy relationships and that importance of body safety, the first one that we think of is emotional awareness. So in terms of the teenage brain, when this is developing, this is when that ability to start using hypothetical reasoning comes about. So this means that during an adolescence, teens start to become more capable of thinking about abstract and hypothetical ideas. And so this includes them asking, those what-if types of questions and trying to think of multiple solutions or possible outcomes to situations that they're confronted with. And this is also the time during their lives where they start to notice other people's flaws as well. So this will also lead to an awareness and self-consciousness about their own flaws. And we also have these little things that also will happen as well, such as the imaginary audience, which is this feeling that everyone is watching them, looking at what they're doing, as well as a personal fable, which is that their own experiences are completely unique. And so a teen with a high personal fable level or score, for example, with an invulnerable mindset has no issue with acting out, doing those types of risk-taking behaviors. So when it comes to emotional awareness in teens, so the first one is emotion regulation, which is knowing the why, when, and how we experience our emotions. Then there's self-awareness, so recognizing our emotions, what we specifically care about, and how we view ourselves, or view themselves, and then also self-esteem, how we value and perceive our own selves. And so having social and emotional awareness does not mean that you have to adhere to the social expectations of emotions and how you should feel your emotions. So this is teaching your children to act in alignment with their own values over the social norms and expectations that they might be hearing about at school in their extracurriculars and as well as in the media. So when it comes to emotion regulation, there are 5 steps that we think of. So the first one is noticing and identifying the emotion. So this is paying attention to what your child's behavior is telling you about their feelings before you do or say anything else. So to help you identify their emotions, try and stay calm and listen to what your child's saying. So for example, maybe your kid comes home and they're very upset that they got a D or an F on a test. Maybe they feel disappointed in themselves, but when they're complaining to you about it, they're saying, my teacher hates me, all these other issues have been going on in class that most likely, or maybe not, might be the real reason as to why they're upset. So trying to put yourself in their shoes and understanding or trying to imagine yourself in a similar situation, maybe how you felt when you were their age and you got a bad grade, or even at your job right now, if you make a mistake at your current job, how that makes you feel, kind of putting yourself in their shoes, in their situation. So after identifying that emotion, you want to name and connect the emotion. So you want to name it that they're experiencing and connect it with the event that they're explaining is causing that emotion. So for example, going back to that D on a test example, so saying something like, I think you may be feeling frustrated and disappointed about the grade that you got on your test. And so this helps the children understand that their emotion that they're actually feeling, they have a name to it and they're understanding why they're experiencing that emotion. Instead of, like we said earlier, maybe saying the teacher hates me, or things have been too difficult for them and no one's giving them help. So labeling these emotions will also show children that you understand how they feel and that that specific emotion that they're feeling is okay, even if their behavior around it is not. And so the next one is pausing and saying nothing. So this is where it gives children time to really process what was just said. It's a really big thing. We think of those awkward silences, they can be a little bit of a struggle, but in this case, maybe if it's too hard to kind of give them that time of silence, just counting to 5 in your head. But this brief pause can help them try and solve a problem in themselves, maybe ask you some additional questions they may have on how to go about approaching the situation further. And also if they're really wound up, this brief few seconds of silence may also give them time to calm down. And so next, for number 4, you want to support your child while they're calming down. So if they seem very upset, if they need more time, make sure that they're safe, you're safe, and the people around you, if there's anyone around you, are safe. So if you need anyone to get help as well, like maybe a sibling, a partner, spouse, to help you just kind of get them calm, totally fine. But just remember to stay calm as well. You can stay close to your child. If they have to go to a separate room to calm down, just let them know, I'm here whenever you're ready to talk, and letting them know that you understand and can handle whatever their emotions are. And again, if they want space, give it to them, but let them know that you're there whenever they need it. And then finally, addressing the issue. So you want to address your child's behavior and ask them if they want any help with solving a problem at hand. So if your child's upset about a rule, for example, that you can't change or that you won't change, acknowledging their emotions, but trying to avoid a debate. So maybe saying, I know you're angry that you can't go to a party or that you can't go hang out with your friends here, but explaining why. Saying, you know, I'm not comfortable with you attending parties where there's no adult supervision or something like that. And giving your child that comfort and reassurance that they need. So, for example, validating their experiences, saying, you know, if this was a scary thing that happened, this was a troubling thing that happened, any emotions that they may have to events, making sure that you validate those, and again, give those names to them so that they're understanding what emotions are tied to what words. And so the next skill that teens and tweens need is boundary setting and respecting. So first things first, boundaries are not rules for others. So boundaries are about understanding and respecting our own needs and then being able to understand and respect the needs of others. So setting boundaries and respecting them helps teens to learn how to advocate for themselves by setting their own boundaries, understanding what they are okay and not okay with. It teaches them healthy communication skills. Once they've set their own boundaries, they can be more comfortable communicating those boundaries with others. And then it also teaches them how to treat others with kindness and dignity. And boundaries are an important thing that in the young adult life stage, because these teens are on the cusp of adulthood, and so they're starting to gradually experience these more serious scenarios where they need to start really honing into boundary setting and establishing and communicating those boundaries. So ways to practice boundaries. So when practicing boundaries with your child, it's important to do so without judgment. And remember that this is a learning experience for them. So even if something seems wrong that they're doing at first, or just seems a little iffy, not coming at it with judgment, not having a really judgmental face or anything like that, but remembering that this is a learning experience for them. If it's something that could be a problem, it's okay to totally work on it as you guys go. But listening to them, asking questions, allowing them to ask questions rather than attempting to lecture how things should be done, and not forcing advice on them as well. So when it comes to setting boundaries in relationships, it's important to discuss about how important it is to respect another person's privacy, respecting each other's privacy while you're having this type of conversation as well. So set boundaries around communication with yourself and your team when you're having this conversation. That right there is going to start, kind of open up the conversation that you want to have regarding boundaries with other people. So once you have those boundaries set around communication, this can include, we're going to talk about these topics, but we're not going to go into this. If you have any questions about this, and if I don't know the answer, that's okay. I'll say I don't know it. I'll find it out later, and we'll come back to it. Just setting boundaries around that communication. And then to practice boundaries as well, you can practice with siblings, close family, and friends. And in these types of situations where they're doing so with people that they know that they're used to, it helps them identify and label those peer pressure and norms among friends in a more safe environment, and also their feelings about the norms at school or in social media that they're seeing. And so it's also important to remember to remind pretty much everyone, but also your kids, that if anyone doesn't respect your boundaries, they're most likely not a safe person that you should be with. Any questions about boundaries? And the third skill that teens and tweens need for body safety and healthy relationships is healthy sexuality. So when it comes to healthy sexuality and gender norms, the first part of owning the skill of healthy sexuality is identifying societal gender norms, understanding how they affect people's thoughts and behaviors towards others, and recognizing that these are misleading and they lead to an increased likelihood of someone committing acts of interpersonal violence. So traditional masculine norms are things like men don't cry, men have to be the breadwinner in the relationships, they're being taught to be aggressive and tough, to show their power to others, and these aren't harmful just to women, these are harmful to men and boys. When you're especially telling boys to fit into this traditional masculine norm of don't show your emotions, don't talk about your emotions, this is harmful to everyone in society. And so traditional scripts as well, they teach girls to be the gatekeepers of sex and boys to be the initiators. And so men are typically in charge of making the moves in society. And we can even see this in regards to dating. So at least a few years ago for me, when a woman was to ask a man out, that was like, whoa, she is very forward, that's too much, she's too overbearing, don't go out with her. Whereas it's more typically the man approaching the women saying, hey, will you go on a date with me type of thing. And then, so boys also, it's important to remember that boys incorrectly believe that their friends approve of sexist attitudes and behaviors more than they actually do. And we've also seen this in research with studies and surveys that have been conducted with people's attitudes, specifically high school men's attitudes towards sexist beliefs and behaviors. So one high school was surveyed asking male students' thoughts on sexist attitudes and behaviors. Most of them did not approve of them, said that they did not use them, they weren't in support of it, but when they asked what their male peers thought of them, they said that they think that all their friends are actually very active on doing these behaviors, very, very deep in the beliefs of these sexist attitudes, when in reality their own peers and friends have the same views as them, that they don't actually do these sexist behaviors, believe in these attitudes, things like that. So it's important to remember that, to remind kids that although it's that common belief that these sexist attitudes are very common, especially in society with how things can be portrayed, this is actually not the norm, especially among them and their friends. And we're going to watch a little video here. Sorry. Oh yeah, the CC's.
They do use like derogatory words.
They'll have some.
Yeah.
Just a heads up.
Just a heads up.
Stop crying. Stop with the tears.
Don't cry.
Pick yourself up. Stop with the emotions.
Don't be a pussy.
Don't let nobody disrespect you. Be cool and be kind of a dick.
Always keep your mouth shut.
Nobody likes a tattletale.
Bros come before hoes.
Don't let your woman run your life.
You bitch.
What a fag. Get laid. Do something.
Be a man.
Be a man.
Grow some balls.
The three most destructive words that every man receives when he's a boy is when he's told to be a man.
We've constructed an idea of masculinity in the United States that doesn't give young boys a way to feel secure in their masculinity, so we make them go prove it all the time.
Within their peer group culture, each of them is posturing based on how the other boys are posturing, and what they end up missing is what they each really want, which is just that closeness.
In good times, guys are like really close to each other, but when things get a little bit worse, you're on your own.
From middle school, I had 4 really close friends. Once I kind of went into high school, I struggle finding people I can talk to because I feel like I'm not supposed to get help.
Our kids get up every morning, they have to prepare their mask for how they're gonna walk to school. A lot of our students don't know how to take the mask off. What is it you don't let people see? Almost 90% of you had pain and anger on the back of that paper.
If you never cry, then you have all these feelings stuffed up inside of you, and then you can't get them out.
They really buy into a culture that doesn't value what we've feminized. If we're in a culture that doesn't value caring, doesn't value relationships, doesn't value empathy, you are going to have boys and girls, men and women go crazy.
I had anger issues in high school. I felt like an outcast.
I've been suspended at least once every year I was here. We would just look for trouble and just like try to fight. Boys are more likely to act out. They're more likely to become aggressive. Most people miss that as depression or see it as a conduct disorder or just a bad kid.
I felt like just giving up on life. You know, I actually had suicide thoughts in my head at 6th grade.
I felt alone for a long time, and I actually thought about killing myself.
Whether it's homicidal violence or suicidal violence, people resort to such desperate behavior only when they are feeling shamed and humiliated or feel they would be if they didn't prove that they were real men.
If you're told from day one, don't let nobody disrespect you, and this is the way you handle it as a man, respect is linked to violence.
If I can man up, why step down from that, you feel me?
It's like instinct.
So man up, man up, man up, man up. Bust a fucking ball. Act like a man. Be a man.
Be a man.
For my kids, I was gonna end this hyper-masculine narrative here.
We're going to watch the female version of that as well.
The media is the message and the messenger, and increasingly a powerful one.
In a world of a million channels, people try to do more shocking things to break through the clutter. They resort to violent images, or sexually offensive images, or demeaning images.
When is it gonna be enough? There is no appreciation for women intellectuals. It's all about the body, not about the brain.
You all saw the photo from the weekend of Hillary looking so haggard and looking like 92 years old. Breast implants. Did you have them or not?
If you waterboarded Nancy Pelosi, she wouldn't admit to plastic surgery.
The fact that media are so derogatory to the most powerful women in the country, then what does it say about media's ability to take any woman in America seriously?
I have close friends that will go to the bathroom and put on like 10 pounds of makeup, you know, and you're at school to learn.
I remember in 5th grade, I was worrying about my weight, and now I'm in 9th grade, I'm still worrying about my weight.
As a culture, women are brought up to be fundamentally insecure.
Media creates consciousness, and if what gets put out there that creates our consciousness is determined by men, we're not going to make any progress.
Little boys and little girls, when they're 7 years old, an equal number want to be president of the United States when they grow up. But then you ask the same question when they're 15, and you see this massive gap emerging.
We're shortchanging voices that are urgently needed in public forums from ever getting to the table.
As the most powerful country in the world, if you're not standing for the right values and for the right principles, that's a loss for the world.
You get a woman in the Oval Office, most powerful person in the world, what's the downside?
You mean besides the PMS and the mood swings?
The media treats women like shit, and it's horrible, and it's like, I don't know how we survive it. I don't know how we rise above it.
You can't be what you can't see.
It's extremely important for women to be writing their own stories and giving them to people to really emotionally become impacted by.
The media can be an instrument of change. It can awaken people and change minds. It depends on who's piloting the plane.
Comments, questions off of those two? Alright, so those just kind of give like these are, I still need to see one of them, these documentaries, but they do a great job of not just addressing gender stereotypes and their effects on everyone, but specifically going into schools and seeing how youth actually interact with those stereotypes, how they live with them, and how they're trying to combat them at the same time. Alright, so, and we kind of saw a few of these as well. But so we kind of saw a few of these in the video as well, but these are just some ads. Luckily we haven't, I haven't seen things this iffy lately in the media. I think it's kind of toned down, but these are kind of ads that we've seen in the past, whether it's Dolce & Gabbana, or just anything where they're using women as an object and men playing around with them. So it kind of leads to this question of, if this was to come across your child's screen, how would you start this conversation with them? So if you guys want to turn to one or two people next to you, you can kind of think about this, but in terms of if, you know, let's say you were in the room and this came across your child's screen, one of these, and you kind of saw it from the side of your eye, how would you kind of start this conversation with them? You know, would you say, you know, what are your thoughts on this? Does this make you feel any way? Does this evoke any feelings for you? Have you seen anything like this before? Is this normalized in your school? Things like that. But yeah, if you want to talk amongst your guys' selves, see like you want to kind of think of how you would approach this with your kids. Give you about 2 minutes. Yes.
I'm so confident, you know, I'm all there. I don't really share. I just don't lie. That's exactly. For me, the whole thing about this is she is professional. It's more like you know. I would think it's completely away from you know. Right. Yeah, that's the thing. You look at it from the child's perspective. You look at it from the child. Yeah.
Right, yeah, certainly, yeah. I want to say something, and yeah, that's happening. Well, yeah, that's the church.
So if we want to come back now, and if anyone wants to share some of their discussions that they had, some things that they would kind of want to converse about, start that conversation with the kid, anything they want to share.
Well, I was just saying that we're a Christian family, so for me, the Dolce & Gabbana dressed like that, it's inappropriate. That's the first thing.
So my argument was like, when I'm looking at this, I'm Christian too, and I'm looking at this picture and I see kind of like 5007 and the one woman on it, and it doesn't bother me, but it may bother or may imply my daughter, right, or affect her daughter, my daughter. I don't think the same way as she does, because I'm not 11, I'm 40 plus, and I'm self-confident, and you know, I deal with those stupid men when I'm in my 20s, and I never look at them because I thought that they were arrogant. But she may think that's the way how she's supposed to look and behave. So that was a very good example, I have to say. Because again, I'm looking at a very nice picture. That's all what I see.
And also, if you don't say anything to the child, they'll think that's fine.
Exactly.
They can dress like that. They can act like that. But if you speak up and say the first thing you see that, you say that is inappropriate. They'll keep on remembering saying, oh no, mommy said that's not right, daddy said that's not right. Do I really want to do that and get in trouble? That kind of thing. Because if you don't say them, you're like, oh, that's fine. Next thing you know, your child is acting like that on the floor, like, oh, I'm just acting like the commercial.
Yeah, would you want to see your daughter on one of these ads?
Yeah.
I think that would freak any parent out, quite honestly.
And there's a real power dynamic in the Dolce & Gabbana one as well. You have the four men at an elevated posture, they're in suits, presenting this very powerful dynamic, kind of bending down to the woman's level, and she's partially undressed, right? Which provides, it gives an image of having a lot of vulnerability in the woman as well.
Definitely. And I really appreciate what you had said with, you know, this, you know, evokes, you know, kind of like a bleh emotion with me, or whatever emotion you may have specifically with one or all of these images, but that's not always going to be the same as what your kids are feeling. And that's why it's important to, have those conversations and say, you know, what do you see right off the bat when you see this? Not giving your answer, but saying, you know, just your thought, you know, does anyone say anything about this in school? Have you seen things like this in school or on media? Kind of opening up that conversation as well with, you know, where are you seeing these things? Are they on media? Like, what kind of social websites are we okay with you going on from here?
It's more complicated for these kids too. It's like when we were teens, we had the fashion magazines and there was shows, and it wasn't in as many places. I think a lot of this was more acceptable too. It wasn't questioned like the Dolce & Gabbana ad. I wouldn't have questioned that at all as a teen, or even like in middle schooler. It's just, oh yeah, this is how it is. You know, I think that is a positive thing that the conversations are shifting. But it's just in so many more places, and places that we're not always present in, where they're being
And also, and now it's just one click away. So like with your magazine, you're flipping through the magazine, you know, you can have a certain type of.
With the technology that's compared now to 30 years ago when we were growing up, it's.
I mean, they could be watching, and I know it's not supposed to, but they could be watching a kid's cartoon on YouTube, and one of these ads would pop up. It's not supposed to, but it does happen. And I was just talking about, you know, watching the news or something like that, being on TV, and then some Globe ads come up, and they're talking about abortion and sexual rights and all that. And it's on the TV. It's, you know, in the middle of your living room.
Oh yeah, our Roku. I mean, you go back to the, you know, you get those ad-supported screens, and yeah, they don't control those very well at all.
No, they really don't. So it's in front of their eyes where they're viewing TV or not.
Yeah, my husband always said we need to sign up for the YouTube where we're paying whatever monthly fees just so we don't have ads. So kids, so all of us, whatever gadget you're using, each child has their own login, and there's no ads. So that is, for us, that's controlled right there. So they're not getting anything extra where, oh, I happen to see this. The only time it'll happen is when they're using their Chromebooks from school. It's, oh, there's an ads. Okay, can I check? That's why I'm always there doing my kids' hair, like I was saying. I do my kids' hair, and they have the Chromebook right there, and I'm watching what they're watching. So I have access, full access on Okay, this is what you're doing. Okay, this, and commercial comes on. Okay, let's see what's going on. Okay.
Well, I think watching what kids are watching is great, but the problem is they will go to their friend's house, and that's when you get screwed. So I think conversation in general, and that was one of my questions, which I would like to ask at the end, is how much are we teaching our kids in school about those things? Because that's, you know, there's like few parents here in the school. I don't know how many students we have in the school. A lot.
Yes.
I think, so I know so Catherine and I work with the high schoolers who actually, they have the peer students who are like leaders, student leaders. They do all sorts of like mental health advocacy and things like that. So we work really closely with them and sort of train them. And then they come into the middle schools and do workshops with the middle schoolers as well. And they're supposed to also do some like education and awareness raising within their own high schools. So I know that's really big, and I think with the like FLE curriculum though, I think there's always like opportunity to do more though. I can't speak to the exact curriculum, but
yeah, I think, and I mean, I even said while we came in here that I was like, oh, there was a peer student that we've seen at like a training or something. So, and that's something that, you know, we've got initiatives lined up as well with the high schoolers a lot. I think they are amazing with the initiatives regarding healthy relationships, getting rid of those gender norms and things like that. And so I think increasing their presence as well within middle schools is a big avenue for combating these types of things that they're seeing as well. Yeah.
I think just creating that muscle of questioning it. Like, that's a hard thing to do because children are so accepting and it's counterintuitive for them to question things. But if they can question things and be discerning, I think that'll really help them as well as they're put in uncomfortable situations and to kind of have that muscle of being able to think, is this right? Is something wrong here?
Definitely. Yeah, for my kids, I always teach them if you're not sure about something, ask.
Yeah.
If you're not sure, I don't care how little it is, how silly it sounds, ask. Because it only takes that one question to get something right or wrong. And that could cost you a lot. So always ask. Feel free. It doesn't matter what it is. Just come talk to me. Just ask me. Because I want that openness where they feel free to just ask anything. I don't care whether I'm comfortable with it. I told them to ask. They need to ask. I'd rather they ask me than they go ask a total stranger.
Exactly. And I think that's something that speaks volumes as well is, you know, once you're establishing that rapport of ask me anything, even if it's uncomfortable for me, uncomfortable for you, but it's getting over that uncomfortableness after a while. Once that communication strengthens with them coming up and asking those questions, over time it's going to be a lot easier, less awkward, and they're going to ask you those, you know, a lot of, I can say from personal experience, I didn't come to my parents with the tough questions. I didn't, anything with this type of stuff, I was like, I don't want to talk to you guys about that. But they always made it very difficult to approach them and very, we don't want to talk about this. But, you know, not necessarily, you know, taking a slide and putting it on being like, what do you think? But, you know, in those instances where it does happen, where it does pop up on a screen, where you pass by something, asking that question, you know, have you seen something like this before? What does it make you think? You know, if you're seeing Dolce & Gabbana, you know, what does this show you? Is it showing you that these men are treasuring and, you know, loving this woman and like, because they're all around her? Is it showing you that, you know, they're objectifying her? They're looking down, you know, like she's just an object type of thing. So definitely getting those conversations started, but yeah, making it, saying any question, come up to me and ask, you know, hard, easy, whatever it is, that's the best way to do it. Yes.
Like you were saying, growing up, it was hard to say, Ma, I don't want to talk to you about this. I always went to my grandma, but then as I grew up, I figured, that's not right. My mother should be the one I should be going to talk to about anything. My parents should be the ones that I'm talking to. So that's why I'm doing this for my kids. It's ask me anything. Whether it's appropriate, inappropriate, I'd rather you just ask me, you hear from me. Whether I'm comfortable with it or not, I'm going to give you my honest answer.
Exactly.
But at least you hear it from me.
and it's getting more
and
complicated.
at least I know what you're thinking.
Exactly.
what your mind is on.
Yep, they're not just, who knows what they're thinking. Yeah, you're getting an idea.
And one thing we try to do in my household is that you're not going to get in trouble for talking to me about
No.
this. Because I feel like she never wants to get in trouble, right? So she doesn't want to say something and be like, oh my God, are you going to get mad at me if I say that? So you're not going to get in trouble. Tell me what happened with your friend, or what did you see, or what made you uncomfortable. Like, nobody's in trouble. Your friend's not in trouble. You're not in trouble. We just need to talk about this and figure out what's going on.
I think that's great, yeah. I wish my parents did that. But it's so important.
We all do.
Yeah, I know, right? But and I
Give them
think
what you
too.
can't have, you know? What you
Yeah.
can't have, so.
Looking at, I mean, just walking through all of LCPS personally, like when I see these kids are geniuses. They're so determined for their schoolwork and doing right by their parents and their teachers. They have high goals that they want to achieve. So, like you said, that's the biggest thing, is not wanting to get in trouble, not wanting to offend or, make you guys upset. So I love that, just off the bat, letting them know. You can ask me anything, you can, talk about this if you need to. No one's gonna get in trouble with this. I think that's great. Anyone else? Any questions? All right. And so just kind of the end of that healthy sexuality piece, the other part as well, besides gender norms, is pleasure and willingness. So focusing on the being direct about that importance of clearly stating and respecting another person's yes and no. So this is also not just about respecting others' answers, but respecting yourself. Being able to recognize when you're using sex as something that maybe you're coping for versus something that's actually you want to, you're willing to go into it with like a pleasure, you want to do it. And the most important thing with this is understanding that the answer is no, unless there is a clear and excited and a willing yes. Whether it is, sexual intercourse, whether it's kissing, whether it's holding hands, whether it's posting a picture with someone. Consent is a part of so many parts of our lives. So even if they're, at that young age where, they're like boys are gross, girls are gross, ew, I don't even want to think about that. This ties into so many other parts of their lives, especially with social media. Getting someone's consent to post a picture of you and them on your profile, that's a part of it. And so teaching that over time also helps them as they're growing older, to when they get into those more personal and sexual scenarios of, okay, it's the most important thing right now is to ask about how this person is feeling with this. Are they okay with it? Are they willing to do this? But teaching them those things now, making sure something is a no unless there's an excited and a willful yes. Also understanding that sex and relationships involve very complicated decisions. So weighing the pros and cons together, parents and kids, is very important. You guys have a lot of knowledge. You guys are older, you guys are parents, you know so much more than these kids. And so, of course they have these questions that may come up, they might be a little uncomfortable with it, but being open and honest, saying, no punishment, be free to ask anything. If I don't know the answer, that's okay. I'll go and look it up. I'm not going to tell you something that I don't know as well. But just being with them in that decision and those conversations and being able to weigh pros and cons together. And then also normalizing teens' feelings about sexuality. Most teens are not having sex, but most of them may think that their peers are. So it's okay to give advice about sex if teens are asking, if tweens are asking, but if they're not, don't push it. Just try to stay with being judgment and bias free with whatever conversations are having.
And I would just throw into that, I'm hearing a lot of Christians, so I want to also acknowledge, it may be of value to not, to be wading into marriage, or, I don't want to make any assumptions, but, we're not saying that, you have to be, they have to be doing it right now, but having the conversation early so that when they are prepared and that when they are getting involved in more serious or sexual relationships, they already have that value built up and that practice in conversation and knowing their own sexuality and bodies, so that once they are ready to enter into that, whenever that might be, based on their values, it will feel natural because they've already had that experience in so many other ways that this other, you know, these other big instances won't feel so big and intimidating. So that's really what we mean when we're talking about, you know, like developmentally, right? And that's all those really great examples that you gave.
And so this next video is a little kind of a humor example of, so we all kind of think of the hardest conversations to have with kids is typically sex, masturbation, things like that. But this is a fun way. I think it's from the TV show Weeds, if anyone's seen that. But those more like really difficult conversations, I'm a very big person that really leans in on jokes and comedy. Not to the point where, you know, you're not getting your point across, but honing in that this is an awkward conversation for everyone involved, but might as well approach it knowing that and acknowledging that. But it just kind of gives you a fun way of, this is a hard conversation, but here's a kind of joking way to talk about it, but also realistic, so.
Talk to Shane about jerking off.
I'm all over it. All right, listen closely. I'm not going to beat around the bush. Your little body's changing. It's all good, believe me. Problem now is, every time we jerk the gherkin, we end up with a lot of unwanted sticky white stuff everywhere, right? Right. So, first order of business. No more socks. They're expensive, gumming up the works, plumbing-wise. Now you might be thinking to yourself, but Uncle Andy, what do I do with all that Pearl Jam if I can't spew it into Mr. Sock? Glad you asked. You can have a lovely time tugging the tiger in the shower each morning. That eliminates the need for a goo glove. But the day is long, masturbation's fun, so unless we want to take 4 or 5 showers every day, we're going to need some other options here. So let's start with the basics. Tissues, perfectly acceptable backstop for all that creamy Italian. It can be rough and dry on such soft, sensitive skin, not to mention they can stick to your dickhead like a fucking Band-Aid. Ouch. From there, we move on to more lubricated flat catchers, specifically bananas. Step 1, peel the banana. Step 2, slip the peel over your Randy Johnson, start pitching. Now for extra credit, warm up the peel in the microwave, not too hot. Serious yowza. Also, olive oil, moisturizer, honey, spit, butter, hair conditioner, and Vaseline can all be used for lube. In my opinion, the best lube is lube. So save your allowance, invest in some soon. All right, moving on. When you tug your Thomas on the toilet, shoot right into the bowl. In bed, soft t-shirt, perhaps a downy hand towel of your very own that you don't mind tossing after tossing. There's no such thing as polishing the raised scepter of love too much. It reduces stress, it enhances immune function. Also, practice makes perfect, so work on your control now while you're a solo artist. You'll be playing some long, happy duets in the future. All right, class dismissed. Hey. Homework.
So just a little comedic way of
Jesus.
having that discussion.
Surround.
But so, and it's basically just kind of going off of, it doesn't have to be this sit down, birds and the bees is how we normally think of it. But it can be this more, you know, free-flowing conversation. The kid didn't really ask too many questions in there.
Exactly, free-flowing.
Yeah, he was, yeah, typically, it should have been more, yeah, it was very much lectured, which is not what we want, but just keeping it kind of, you know, not so serious, keeping it more light, getting the serious parts through, but recognizing that it's an uncomfortable situation for everyone involved, but actually talking about it and having that conversation is going to be best for everyone at the end. All right, so how can we teach these skills? So the first one is skipping the talk. So kind of like that a little bit video, it is more of a conversation instead of just a talking to them. So ongoing conversations, plural, not just having a one and done type of thing. But you want to identify teachable moments. So modeling the behavior yourself. This can be giving your kids examples of things to say, ways to act in certain scenarios, maybe scenarios or events that are happening around them, things that maybe they've heard about, they've actually seen, But maybe if, you know, they're having a fight with one of their friends or maybe someone that they're dating, just saying, hey, here's what I do when I get in an argument with someone that I care about. Typically, I just try to calm the situation down, maybe take a few breaths on both sides, and then bring everything back to, you know, the main point at hand, using I statements if necessary, but modeling behaviors for them so that they have an idea at least of what to do.
It also means like having, like, engaging in communication and arguments with your child the way that you would hope that they would participate in, right, in communication and arguments with a partner. So we something that Catherine and I often say, and like especially to parents of like really young children, is like, you're the first relationship that your child has. I'm saying nods, which I love, so like you already know this. So you know, if we don't respect our child's privacy, if we yell at them, if we teach them that they're untrustworthy, then they're going to believe that in their own relationship. So teaching them that they're trustworthy, trying ourselves not to yell or not to use, you know, language like that we wouldn't want a partner to say to them, then that is already teaching them how to engage in those healthy relationships.
But yeah, modeling that for them, those conversations, asking their thoughts and opinions, listening to their thought process, not just saying, what do you think? And they say sad in the end, you know, being, you know, what's making you sad? Why is that? What got you to this point? Learning how and why they're feeling that way, trying to get to the root of it. Also listening without judgment or assumptions, remembering that we were all kids at some age as well. We didn't have a vast knowledge, just a vast knowledge of knowledge pretty much. So these kids, they're going through life, obviously. They're learning things as they go, and you guys are a part of that. You're a part of, you know, stepping in when there may be judgment or maybe assumptions that they already have. Maybe they're going to bring those up to you, and that's your point to be like, okay, here's what's really going on. But letting them know that, you know, you're not there to judge. You're there to support them. Any questions that they have, there's no right or wrong questions. They can ask anything. No one's going to get in trouble or punished. And making sure that they feel safe coming to you with anything. Like we said, making the conversation ongoing, checking in over time. Maybe if there was something where you ended a conversation and maybe one of you was a little iffy at the end, you just felt like something, like there could have been another question, or it just didn't seem like it finished 100%. Checking in the next day, just being like, hey, wanted to make sure if you had any questions off of yesterday's conversation or anything came up, anything like that. And then, of course, answering questions as they come up. And it's more than okay to say, I don't know the answer to your question, but I will do my best to try and find out, and I'll get back to you. Because it's so much better, as we've also said, to find out an answer rather than giving them something that we don't know is for sure right, and then them living that potential lie. So totally okay to say, I don't know. Not everyone has the answers to everything. That's totally fine. All right, and so tips for talking. So answering simply and honestly, relying on resources like laws. We are here for you guys. Just shoot us an email, or you can give us a call if you ever have any questions. Also being aware of your own reactions. So whether that's your facial reactions, if they say something, you're just kind of like, automatically, probably don't do that. But also making sure that your body language, for example, is very focused and attentive on them, not sitting with your arms crossed, maybe back or side to them, but being more open. And making sure that your eyes are set on them, nodding, letting them know that you're hearing them, you're understanding everything that they're saying. And then also avoiding using harmful gender stereotypes as well. And so it's important to actively listen and understand what they really mean and assess where they're coming from. You know, are they coming from a place of hurt? Do they need resources? And know how to offer help without pressuring or pushing them into it as well. And finally, in instances where maybe your kid may be too amped up, they're kind of like just, I'm not having it. I don't want to have a conversation, whether they're screaming, crying, silent treatment, anything like that. If they're amped up and they're having trouble calming down, you can think of doing some calming techniques, grounding techniques to do with them as well. It'll help you, I think it's a major thing, but working with them together. Has anyone heard of the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique? Okay. So let's say someone's really amped up, you're just trying to get them calmed down. So you'll just kind of have them get to listen to you first and say, okay, I want you to name 5 things around you that you can see. And then they'll list 5 things that they can see. Next thing you'll say 4 things that you can hear right now. They'll list those 4 things, then 3 things that they can touch, 2 things that they can smell, and 1 thing that they can taste. So this kind of is like a self-care body, mind practice technique in a way. It just kind of helps them come back to themselves, gives them a sense to reconnect with their senses, with their body, calm back down, get into like their own situation and feel safe and comfortable to actually have a conversation. And so some communication blockers, like we said, lecturing, giving too much advice, maybe a little bit of that Weeds video, but kind of the gist of that, but more of a discussion, like we said. Acting like you know all the answers, like we said, it is okay to say, I do not know the answer, I will come back with it later. Forcing your opinions on the other person. So it's okay to say, you know, this is how, like, we're not going to do this, that, and the other. That's totally fine. But if you're going into, you know, for example, the Dolce & Gabbana, as we talked about, not immediately going into, well, this looks okay to me, because that could be construed as okay to them. So letting them have their own opinions on what they're seeing as well before discussing yours. Being critical, judgmental, or sarcastic can also be iffy. That's kind of something that we want to think of if we are going for the more lightheaded, or not lightheaded, but lighter, joking route of things, like the Weeds video. Keeping it fun and light, but not being sarcastic. That's the biggest thing. You don't want to say something sarcastically and then they actually take it as legitimate. Putting down the other person's opinions, preferences, choices, and feelings. Again, we are all growing. They are kids, they are growing. We are, as humans are growing, we can have different opinions as we get older as well, but understanding that they are growing and they are learning and there's no right or wrong opinions. And then also using body language that suggests that you're not interested. So like we said before, keeping your arms crossed, not looking at them, not seeming like you're really listening, trying to keep your head nodding to make sure that you're understanding everything and they understand that. So active listening to understand what they really mean, trying to assess where they're coming from, and knowing to offer help without pressuring or pushing them into it. So asking, do you need help with this? Is there anything else I can do for you in this moment to help you feel safe and more in control? Any questions? Do we have time for a little?
We have like 10 more minutes for the library. And if parents, if you need to go because of time, please.
All right. Yeah. If you guys want to head out, you are more than welcome to. But if you want to,
I was just gonna. Do you want to just go to the next slide? I can share. Real
okay.
quick.
Yeah.
So,
really quick.
So we have like a little activity that you can pass out if you're interested. But it's basically just ways to practice listening, especially in like moments of conflict. There's that. So basically, and like this will be posted, or you can always ask, and we're happy to share. But we're just kind of trying to get to the point of listening for emotion and listening for our child's point of view, rather than listening to respond or listening, just to get the gist of it, but really trying to understand what it is that they're trying to communicate and how they're actually feeling, so that we can respond most effectively, but also so that we can help them understand what's going on and what's happening in their own bodies.
Right. And these are just some media suggestions of some shows. Of course, recommend watching them yourselves to make sure it's okay for your kids to watch them. I will say Big Mouth has a lot of profanity, so that's one that might be a little older, but they do have some great examples, whether it's a few episodes throughout the season, with talking about these types of discussions that these kids are going through, especially with middle school, getting into adolescence and high school, and how to have those conversations, but focusing on their peer relationships, and what they're actually going through during that point in their lives. Right, and if you guys would like, you are more than welcome to scan this QR code and just take a 2-minute survey briefly, just to let us know how we did. But thank you guys so much for being here. We have A few handouts regarding body safety, as well as communication handouts if anyone wants anything. But other than that, we are